Why are you okay with government enforcing the laws on weed?
Does this have anything to do with
Yeah,
my latest book?
Product placement. I wondered why this was set up here. I guess I see now. So why are you okay with the government enforcing the laws on weed, but not mandates for public health and masks?
The first thing is I was really interested in the aftermath of the release of this book or the promotion for this book, how many things I assumed would go without saying in the conservative Christian world that apparently don't. There's apparently a need for teaching on this and working through it carefully, and this question illustrates that need. I am in favor of mandates on public health. Okay, I think that public health is part of the civil magistrate's responsibility. That's part of his job. The difficulty is the nature of the mandates that are highly politicized. Bureaucracy is the sorts of things they're doing. So it's like instead of quarantining the infectious or quarantining the sick and cordoning them off and saying you have to stay home until you're better for the sake of public health, which would not be tyrannical, not be authoritarian. It's their job. What they've done is they've said everybody has to lock down. Right? It's the illustration I use is if there's an outbreak of pickpockets downtown, the government saying everybody with a wallet has to stay home.
Right.
The government doesn't have the authority to lock down the people who don't have anything to do with the disease. Right. So historically, under common law and common sense, the government has the right to quarantine a house or quarantine a town that has an outbreak of the bubonic plague in it. But they don't have the right to quarantine everybody because somebody might be sick. Okay. And that's what the lockdowns and the masking orders have done, is they've presumed that everybody's infectious, everybody's sick, and then they've applied a mandate that won't work to fight this thing. So we lose our liberty and we don't really do anything about the disease. Yeah. And so a comparable thing with weed would be the government locking down everybody who doesn't smoke weed. Right. Now, moving on to marijuana, I don't think that our current draconian laws on pot make any sense, and I don't like the forfeiture laws where if you're accused of having drugs, the cops can seize your car and you know all of that. I think our current laws and our current war on drugs is largely demented. So I do argue in this book for a reform of our criminal justice system when it comes to drugs being illegal. But basically, it's the same sort of thing. Nobody thinks that the local sheriff is tyrannical when he locks somebody up for the night for being drunk and disorderly. Okay? The problem is with the health mandate stuff, they're locking people up for being sober and orderly. Right? Yeah. So it's an inverted understanding of the question. So with marijuana is a drug whose time has come. People want it to be legal. It's sort of like the birth control pill when it was first when it first came out. It was sort of waved through the FDA. Okay, we want this, and we are not going to brook any dissent. People want recreational marijuana, and they're going to have it. But we really need to do some careful studies on the relationship of marijuana to driving fatalities. THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, is measured in days. The half-life is measured in days. Alcohol is measured in hours. So do you really want the people who are running heavy equipment or who are flying your jet airplane to have gotten stoned out of their brains a week before? Well, the THC is still in their system. I argue for a separate system of drug courts where if someone, I don't think a teenager who's arrested for possession should be sent off to the penitentiary, which is a graduate school for hardened criminals. Right. I don't buy that at all. But I do think that if the government arrested someone for possession, they could fine them and or have them voluntarily enter a treatment program, something like that.
So on this question, it says here, why are you okay with enforcing laws on weed but not mandates for public health? And you're saying you do think the government can enforce laws on public health and
on drugs, yeah.
And a quarantine of the sick would have been enforcing a public health policy, and it would have made perfect sense.
Right.
The problem is the senselessness of how it's been done.
Correct. And the way it's been politicized. So when you have someone arguing in a sober, responsible manner that masks don't work, all right, that they're counterproductive, you've strapped a little cloth Petri dish to your face, and you're going to be touching the mask all morning and then touching every doorknob you go into. Does this really help? Now, the point is that we live in a time when someone could be arguing that and be advancing, here's a serious argument, I'd like people to engage with me and consider this. No, you'd get censored. You'd get censored by Facebook. You'd get censored by Twitter. You'd be censored by everybody. It is amazing to me how fast an orthodoxy of public health formed. So the masks rapidly turned into MAGA hats for the leftists.
Yeah. One last question on that. You said that you were looking at the response from within the Christian world to this book. I'm curious, how much of it is Christians who say, well, actually, I smoke pot and I don't think it's a big deal.
Right.
And how much of it is people who say, yeah, I have a problem with personally smoking marijuana, but because I have a libertarian framework, I don't believe these things can be addressed by the state.
Right.
Do you see a balance in that?
I was expecting the libertarian objection. Yes, I agree with you that it's a sin, but I don't think it should be a crime. So I anticipated that objection and spent a good deal of time in the book addressing that objection. But what surprised me is how many Christians have been saying, I don't think smoking pot's a problem, or I smoke pot, or what? That's the sort of thing I thought would just go without saying. Yeah. It's like someone saying, yeah, I get drunk occasionally, and it's not a big deal as long as you don't make a habit out of it. Well, that's the Apostle Paul, or the apostles tell us to be sober-minded. Don't be drunk with wine wherein is excess. And you're catching at phrases if you say, well, Paul said not to be drunk with wine, but beer is okay, and gin is okay, or marijuana is okay.
I've been sniffing glue like crazy.
The apostle never once mentioned glue.
Okay, thank you.